Okay, so like I said, Freud was the big first guy. Freud said a lot of things, and then other researchers came along and kind of reacted to Freud. Um, One of the theories that emerged following Freud was the humanistic set of theories. These came up in the 40s and into the 50s. Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers were foremost in the development of these theories. We talked about Maslow in the chapter on motivation, and talked about his hierarchy of needs. So I'm mostly going to emphasize Carl Rogers in this chapter. Humanism really rejected Freud's dysfunctional view of people. You know, like I said, Freud developed his theory based on his psychiatric patients who were significantly disordered. Rogers and Maslow decided, let's look at healthy people and focus on, you know, the behaviors that they engage in and the feelings and thoughts that they have. So humanism really studied healthy people, and they focused on those conditions that seem to be most beneficial in supporting healthy personal growth. So here you have Freud on the one hand talking about unconscious motives, and that a lot of them were pretty dark, and that a lot of times we don't know why we're acting the way we are. And then here we have Maslow and Rogers talking about, okay, how do healthy people become their best selves? What factors go into that? Okay, so like I said, let's talk about Rogers. He developed a theory called person-centered psychology. He said that we have a natural tendency to grow, to be healthy, and to be self-actualized. We want to be our best selves. I used poo as a good example of what one component of what we need from our environment in order to become our best selves, and that's genuineness. Freud introduced the idea that the way that our parents reared us might have an impact on whether we become fixated and stuff like that. And Rogers agreed that things our parents do when we're little help to set us up on a particular trajectory towards, you know, health or becoming our best selves or whatever. And so he said there were certain things that we needed from our parents growing up. One is genuineness. We need to feel like our parents have been honest, that they've been direct with us, and that they're not just pretending. I'm going to tell you a little story that kind of illustrates what Rogers is talking about here. Okay, I was going to try and pretend like I knew this person, but okay, it's a plot from the Brady Bunch. Okay, I can't pull it off. Okay, so on the Brady Bunch, which some of you have probably never seen, but the classic 1960s show, just in my defense, I only ever saw it in reruns. I wasn't old enough to see it live, or, you know, like in prime time. Anyway, one episode, Jan, first the family, the kids all got their pictures taken because it was mom and dad's anniversary, and they wanted to have like a formal photograph taken of all the children. Okay, now Jan goes and gets glasses. And so after the picture's been taken, it's been printed, and now for some reason, to hide it from mom until anniversary day, they have taken this delicate, ginormous picture wrapped in brown paper wrapping and placed it in the garage against the wall. Okay, so Jan has to get glasses, but everybody is teasing her about being four eyes and so on, and she's embarrassed, so she decides to ride her bicycle without her glasses on. And apparently she is pretty darn nearsighted because she doesn't see the wall of the garage as she's riding towards it on her bicycle and smashes into the photograph of the family. So she realizes she's ruined the picture, and so all the kids need to get their picture retaken. So they all get together, they raise the money, and they go get their picture taken again, and then Dad figures out that this is a retake because even though everybody's got the same clothes on, Jan has her glasses on in the picture. Smoking gun, because she did not have glasses when the picture was originally taken. Okay, so Dad's talking to her. I always like to say that Rogers' person-centered perspective sounds a whole lot like Brady Bunch parenting. Okay, so Dad is upset with Jen for two reasons. One, because she was riding her bike without her glasses, and that's dangerous because obviously she cannot see the side of a garage, let alone like a car coming or a person. So he was upset because it was dangerous, and then he was upset because obviously she had lied. Okay. So he says to her the truth. You really scared me when I found out that you're riding around without your glasses, and that, how bad your vision is, and, you need to be wearing your glasses. You can't be doing these things. And he didn't try and pretend like he was the dad or something like that. He just was honest, forthright, what he's worried about. He goes, I'm really disappointed that you would lie to me about, the fact that you guys had to retake the picture and things. You should have been honest with me. And he said, he he decides that to punish her, he's going to take her bike away for some amount of time. And then she goes, you can't. I had to sell it to get the new picture. And then he's like, oh, so sweet. But anyway, he told her while he was counseling her on this, he gave her unconditional positive regard. He said, I love you and I really appreciate what you were trying to do by replacing the picture. I really do appreciate that. I know that, you were embarrassed having to wear glasses, and I know you were getting teased. I understand. But I'm not here to judge you for those things. I'm just going to tell you, you know what, I'm going to have to punish you so that you realize that what you did was wrong. So unconditional positive regard is showing the child that the behaviors they engaged in were unacceptable, but that they are ultimately acceptable. That I will always positively regard you no matter what. You're my child. I will always love you. But the key thing is, it still can include discipline. I put punishment on the slide there because, discipline in this kind of circumstance oftentimes involves giving them some kind of negative outcome that they don't want to have happen. Like he was going to use negative punishment, take away her bike as a punishment for her misdeed. Some people who read Rogers thought, well, if you use unconditional regard, that means that you can never say anything negative. And that's not what Rogers meant at all. What he meant is that even as I'm telling you how disappointed I am in your behavior, you can soften that information with this message of general acceptance, that I love you, I will always love you, I do not love what you did, right? And you can't do that anymore. And so to help encourage you not to do it anymore, this is your punishment. When you have little kids, acknowledging feelings is a perfectly fine thing to do. You can say things like, I know how embarrassing it is when you first get glasses, something like that. It's okay to say to little kids, I understand that you're frustrated. I understand how you're feeling, and tell them how they're feeling. By the time they become adolescents, it's really important not to tell adolescents how they feel. All of you who are adolescent or recently have got to be nodding your head that your parents don't know how you're feeling. They don't know. They're old. They have no idea what you're talking about. It's different now than it was when they were kids. I remember feeling like that about my parents. I'm like, you guys are so old. How could you possibly know what I'm talking about, right? The thing is, we all go through that. We all feel like our parents are clueless. And so for an adult to say to an adolescent, I know how you're feeling, usually falls on deaf ears. Once children are adolescents, it's more important to say things like, tell me how you're feeling. I want to understand what you're feeling. Now, this can be frustrating, especially if you have a boy adolescent. My daughter is more than happy to tell me how she feels. She always has been. My son, it is like freaking pulling teeth. And, boys, I've recently read a study that showed that boys do not like to be asked questions. They feel like they've been put on the spot. They're supposed to have an answer for everything, and if they literally do not know, they don't know what to say. And so what I do to my son is I give him like multiple choice questions. I'll say, why did you do that, Aspen? Was it A, this, B, that, C, this? That way he can reject. Sometimes I'll give him like a really outlandish one, because you hate me and you want me to be sad. Hopefully that's outlandish. And then I'll give him other ones that I think are probably in the realm of what he might be feeling. And then I'll say, or D, none of the above. Or E, all of the above. Like what motivated your behavior? But with teens, it's more important to ask them to tell you what they're feeling, and not to judge them is a key thing. And then finally, the last thing Roger says we all need to receive from our parents is empathy. The feeling that they understand us, that they have tuned in to our feelings, that they want to understand us, that they'll listen to us. I got the best card from a student once in one of my classes, because she said, what's great about your class is that you respect that we all might be interested in different things, that we might have different pressures on our time and things like that. And I loved that she used the word respect, because part of the reason why I have respect for the variations in what you guys might be going through is because I have empathy for it. I was a working student. I worked 35 hours a week and had to drive 20 miles to campus. We didn't have online when I was a student. I had to drive to campus, I had to wedge it in between. My parents expected me to go to college, but didn't necessarily send me to college. So I had to put myself through college. And and then I got married while I was in college, and my husband was in the military, and we got transferred around a lot. And so I understand the displacements and things that a lot of you guys have gone through. And I have complete empathy for what it's like to be a student, because I was a student for a lot of years, right? I went from bachelor's through master's through PhD, and so I've been a student for a lot of years and through a lot of life changes, and I've been teaching a long time. And so it really meant a lot to me to hear from a student that she felt like I was respectful towards students and their conditions and their interests and stuff like that, because I feel like it's not only important for us to experience genuineness, unconditional positive regard, and empathy when we're kids. We need to have people in our lives, our whole lives, who provide this test in order for us to achieve our fullest potential at all of our life stages. And so to be able to do that for at least anybody makes me feel really, like satisfied that I'm doing what I meant to be doing in the job that I'm doing. So it's really reinforcing. Now, one of the things that Rogers introduced that is important, and another issue on this, sort of respect and stuff like that, is that a lot of times we carry around with us an ideal self, a self that we think we should be. Actually, I'm going to quote one of Freud's followers, because Karen Horney mentioned that a lot of us operate under the tyranny of the shoulds, that we feel like we should be doing certain things, that we should be liking certain things, that we should be acting certain ways. And she said if we could all get out from underneath the tyranny of the shoulds. Rogers must have read Horney, because he was like, part of this tyranny of the shoulds is self-imposed, that we carry around with us this ideal self who we think we should be. And our ideal self almost always is better than us. Our ideal self has achieved more, is nicer, is more motivated, is, like all the stuff we wish we were will pile over in that ideal self. And then we judge ourselves for not actually meeting that. And what Rogers points out is that the greater the disparity between the actual self that we observe, our self-concept, and then our ideal self that we think we should be, the more disparity there is, the more difference there is between those two things, the less healthy our personality will be. We'll be very self-judging, borderline self-loathing. If we feel like we should be a certain way and we are completely not fulfilling that, that can make us very disappointed in ourselves. And then that sets us up for expecting everybody else to be disappointed in us also. So he says that's an unhealthy perspective. So our self-concept would be our core of our personality, and it's really our sense of our nature and our identity, whereas our ideal self is how we would like to be, how we should be, we think. And, I was just listening to somebody talking about parents and how, we try so hard. Most parents are trying to be good parents, but we are all human. I mean, we are all, oh my gosh, human. And the thing is, we can wound a child even during our best intentions and give them the impression that they are not meeting our ideal for them. And that's the thing that Rogers always wanted to make sure that parents understood, is that we want to make sure that we're conveying unconditional positive regard more often than we are placing conditions of worth on our children. We don't want our kids to get the impression that I love you when you do these things, or I love you when you achieve that, or whatever. We want them to know you are lovable. I love you no matter outcomes. That there are certain behaviors that you need to work on or eliminate, but you are lovable. And I love you exactly how you are. Now, of course, according to Rogers, once we can accept ourselves, then we can move into accepting other people. It's hard to be fully embracing of others when we don't feel worthy. I mean, if somebody's of high quality, and we, who we're interested in or something, or who we're friends with, and we don't feel like we match up, we may start to question the person of quality, thinking, well, what kind of judgment do they have that they're spending time with me, a loser who doesn't deserve to be around a person of quality? We can't be accepting of other people in an open-hearted way when we are criticizing ourselves. So self-acceptance, according to Rogers, is step one for healthy relationships with other people. All right, now I'm going to take a break here, and we will come back and talk about trait theories, social cognitive theories, and the self.